everyone, Christy Arnett here for Card Player TV, and in the studio today is Scott Seiver. He just won the $5,000 buy-in No Limit Hold'em event, and you online people might know him as Master Blaster on Full Tilt and Gunning for You on PokerStars.
Okay.
Scott, thank you so much for coming in today.
It's good to be here, Christy. Thank you.
So, is it all sinking in yet? You've got your bracelet on. You said your friends made you wear it?
Yeah.
When you show it off for the cameras for a second?
Yeah, basically my friends told me that I should wear it for Rio tournaments for a little bit, maybe inspire fear in some of the other people I play against for a while. I think it's kind of silly, but no, it hasn't really fully sunk in yet, actually, because I'm still way too calm and mellow about it, and I should be, like, ecstatic and jumping off the walls. So I'm sure this is going to hit very soon, but...
So you haven't had a chance to celebrate yet?
Not really, because I was really tired afterwards. We had, several days of 14-hour play straight, and it's really exhausting, and I didn't even feel so well afterwards. So I've been taking it easy the past few days, just hanging in with friends and whatnot. I went with dinner with, like, 9 of us to quasi-celebrate, but there'll be a lot more celebrating later. But I'm still playing events, so I haven't really had downtime yet.
Gotcha. Well, it's easy, for being in Vegas. Now, you live in Vegas, too, right?
Yes.
So you know all the hot spots to go to?
Yeah.
So where did you move from now that you live in Vegas?
I was in Providence, Rhode Island. I went to school at Brown and then stayed there for 1 year afterwards with friends. And then when they all graduated, I just moved out here about 2.5 weeks ago. I got here the day before the first event started.
Oh, okay, cool. Now, you just recently moneyed in that $25,000 buy-in Full Tilt event. So going into the series, did you have some momentum?
I definitely felt I had momentum. I had an extremely strong May, my best month playing online to date, and I was feeling really good about my game and was really looking forward to the series to try and see if I could carry it over to live poker, and so far it's been working.
So far so good. 3 cashes, and the third one was a charm.
Exactly.
The bracelet. So let's talk about the event. How did it start for you?
It started off very well. I was pretty lucky early on, even though I had an extremely hard table draw full of very young people. The oldest person at the table was Brandon Cantu at age 29, and the second oldest we went around had just turned 24 a week ago, was the second oldest person at our table.
So it was a lot of young and aggressive players?
A lot of very, very aggressive, but the table broke fairly quickly, and I just over tripled up in the first about hour and a half of that table.
And how did you do that with those aggressive players? Did you play super, super aggressive, or did you play tight and take advantage of those aggressive players?
I was calling a lot pre-flop and letting other people squeeze 3 bets behind, and then I would either 4-bet after calling or call afterwards with much stronger hands than them, and I was getting lucky that I was hitting a lot of flops as well when I did so.
Gotcha. And what is your style generally?
It varies a lot, I have to say. I'm definitely very aggressive when I have a lot of chips, but normally I'm fairly tight with my opening standards, but I'm usually pretty aggressive on other people's opens, and I definitely try to win every pot once I start playing said pot.
So getting up early, that makes it easier to navigate your way through a big field. Did you have any big confrontations in the beginning of the tournament?
Definitely. When the average was around 25,000 or 20,000, I was a little over 65,000 and got 30,000 of it in pre-flop against Dimitri Nobles, my aces versus sevens, and he hit a 7, which brought me back down. And it was a little demoralizing at first because I had all these chips and I'm only an average stack, but within about half an hour I got it back up to 100,000, and at this point the average was 40,000 about.
How did you do that? Just playing super aggressive?
Yeah, I don't think I even had any showdowns this time, just maybe 1 showdown, but no big pots, just really attacking my table, which was a pretty good table at the time. It was a pretty soft table. And at
no one called you down light thinking that you were steaming after that hand or anything?
No, it's all about picking your spots and knowing the people at the table that either know who I am and thus would assume I wouldn't make big moves against them, or don't know who I am and therefore assume that I must have it. And so I built it back up pretty quickly and then got 75,000 of this all-in pre-flop against Dimitri Nobles again, my ace-king versus jacks, where I hit an ace and then he hit jack-jack. So I was back down to around 25,000. Yeah. And I ended the day with only 26,000, with the average being up to like 70,000. So it was a really roller coaster day one, and I ended with very few chips.
So at least you got to go home, and you got to, refuel and come back the next day. How did you build your chips up?
I basically very slow grind. I started with 26.7, I think, 26,700 going into day 2. 2 hours in at the first break, I was at 31,000. 4 hours in at the second break, I was at 36,000. I basically just stayed along until I got very lucky and got my 38,000 stack in sevens against queens, blind to blind, and I hit the 7.
This time it was you who hit the 7.
Yes,
so.
and exactly. And so that got me up to 80,000, which was still under average stack, but much more in contention. And from there, I pretty much never looked back.
And going into the final table, how was your chip stack?
I had 35% of the chips in play, I believe, with 9 left. I had 2.5 million of the 7.3 million total. So I had a pretty good lead at that point.
Did you have a good read on your opponents?
Yeah, I felt I did. I knew a lot of the players. There were several online players that I knew and a couple friends of mine there that I knew their games fairly well. And I felt as the table went along, I was picking up really good reads on them. And most of them were scared to play big pots against me, as they should be due to all the payouts at a final table.
Is it hard to play against your friends?
It definitely is. It's a somewhat weird feeling, but I feel that you have to definitely separate your friends from what you're doing at the poker table, because you can't let up or anything, because it causes too many issues. And in the very first hand second hand of the final table, I busted my friend Scott Freeman at the final table, and it's not like you can not go after the players when you feel there's good spots to do so.
Was there any turning point at the final table where you just thought that you were definitely going to take this thing down?
Definitely, actually, although no one else would even know of it or think of it, because it's a hand I folded, actually, where Jacobo Fernandez raises the cutoff and the button Raj, whose bad cards AA on stars, 3 bets. And I looked down at my cards, and there are 9-6 of diamonds, and I sensed weakness in both of them and was planning on cold 4-bet bluffing. But before I even got to, Ben Springer's cold 4-bet all in from the small blind with aces, and he was a shortish stack. So Jacobo folded, and Raj felt he was forced to call, so I got to see that he was 9-3, that he 3-bet with. So even though it was a hand I folded and didn't involve me whatsoever, I felt really good about my reads at the time, knowing that this 4-bet would have definitely worked. And that was actually the moment for me that made me feel really good about how I would do at the table.
Kind of boosted your confidence. And,
Definitely.
And from there on, you went on with your read?
Yeah, I made a lot of good reads. I made a lot of very tough calls where I called multiple streets with bottom pair against Ben in one hand, king high against Mike Seidman in the heads up for another hand, and everything worked out really well.
It's funny, I was just talking with a couple of my friends about when you play heads up and you make a call with king high, how it plays in their minds, like they don't want to bluff anymore, and it's such a huge advantage to be able to call with a hand like that, right?
Certainly. He definitely seemed somewhat demoralized afterwards. I was purposely trying to make all my decisions heads up as quick as possible, because he definitely seemed somewhat scared and intimidated at the speed that I was playing and the reads I was making. So I just wanted to keep the pressure on to make him think mentally that he was already beaten. So I figured that would help a lot. So there's definitely the overlay of making a hero call like that, because when you're right, it really sets it in their mind that I can't bluff this guy. He's going to somehow magically know every time.
So when you finally clinched the win, what was it like? Were your friends around?
Yeah, there were 8 to 10 friends of mine sweating in the stands, and they all jumped down and started, high-fiving and hugging and whatnot, and it was really emotional and a really good moment. And I was really shocked my hand held, because I got it in top pair of our second pair, and he could have hit an ace to spike, and the ace always spikes on the river. And that's what I was most shocked about, that I somehow actually held in the most important all-in of my life.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking about your bracelet win.
Of course, it's been a pleasure.
It seems like your series is going well, and there's a lot left to go, so
definitely.
We'll see you again.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Christiana with Scott Seiver for Card Player TV.